Yep.
Yep. Okay. First today we have assistant coach Amorrow Morgan. We'll go right into questions. Please use the hand raise function and wait to be called on. And please keep your computer on mute unless you're asking a question. We'll start with Ryan and then go to Grant.
Yeah, Mara, what was different for you guys in the second half against Alabama compared to some of the other competitive road games y'all been in and haven't been able to get the job done?
Yeah, I think just our staff overall and coach has just done a great job of just bringing awareness to, we got to make sure that we continue to keep focusing for 40 minutes, but we also got to compete for 40 minutes. Obviously, there's been several games against really good programs around the country where in the first half we seemed somewhat dominant, even going back to the exhibition at Duke and Illinois. And we were really good, probably the better team, for 25 to 30 minutes of the game, but then just losing focus and just having this new group, obviously, who the fans have grown to love here over the past. Those dudes have been with coach for so long, so they understood, the amount of focus that you need in order for you to win, a road game. But our guys are just continuing to mature and grow up. I think that was just a huge thing for us is that we hadn't won a road game, and I think our focus was incredible.
Were there some nervous moments when Jalen was down holding his knee, given what you guys have been looking for in the front court? And does it feel like you guys maybe avoided the worst case scenario there?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, when you see any of your guys, down on the floor and grimacing, especially him, someone who's obviously built like a tank. He has the genes, the genetics. He's never been really one to known to get hurt. Like this is his first time ever being out for an actual physical injury. So this is new for him as well. So, we were kind of optimistic just because of his build. But sometimes you just never know with those things. But we are super fired up and happy that he is okay. And you know what I mean, that he's not gonna have to miss a lot of time.
Mike and then Ben.
Yeah, Amaro, what were the best things that JP gave you guys in the final minute and a half or so at Alabama, and how does he build on those things to be more consistent moving forward?
Yeah, I'm sure with all of you, there was some excitement when he jumped up there and grabbed some of those big rebounds. One of them was an offensive rebound, and he probably should have passed it out, but hadn't really been in the game that much, in those late game moments. So just his competitive fire, competitive edge, and his focus, just the same. There was huge growth, and coach has been as hard on him as he is on anybody, and our staff as well, just trying to make sure he understands how much he can help this team take another step. And it was great for him to get the opportunity to start, and hopefully he can continue to keep building on that, and just obviously his play. Obviously, in the first semester was incredible. Due to injury, I think that was like probably the biggest setback just for him when he had so much momentum early. But just seeing his focus and his toughness over the course of that game, obviously it wasn't one of his better offensive games, we would say, but I thought defensively he got out and guarded guards when he was in some positions where he had to guard a Phylon or a Taylor Bowl, and he was able to move his puppies, move his feet, and guard and contest without fouling, which was a huge step for him in the right direction. And just him being able to do that, get that done against such a good team and such a good player, you can just see it on his face, man, that he gained a lot of confidence from that.
Amaro, how important is it going to be for you all to dictate the pace tomorrow night in Athens? I believe Georgia is second in adjusted tempo and first in fast break point. So, how big of an emphasis is that for y'all?
Yeah, it's going to be obviously an emphasis. We're always going to want to control the pace of the game, right? Like obviously, some of our best offense is, second shot offense. Just being able to, get offensive rebounds and put the ball back in. Like if we're able to score, obviously that's going to slow them down. Right, keeping them out of transition. And then obviously a thing that we've struggled with, which is taking care of the ball, which we did a great job in the game against Alabama, only having 10 turnovers in that game, just trying to make sure that we have the focus necessary to do the same. They're gonna try to press us and pressure us and trap ball screens occasionally and try to do some things to speed you up. And obviously we've had some moments where, we hadn't games where we hadn't been able to really take care of the basketball. So taking care of the ball, making sure that we dominate the glass, and then, making sure that we do what we do and we execute. And that's one thing I thought Jacoby Gillespie did incredible. He did a great job against Alabama. He had a late turnover there, but just his focus and value in the ball and trying to make sure that we got, a good shot or a shot every single possession. You can just tell, in the huddles, our team, our guys, they were just talking about, fellas, we got to take care of the ball. We got to take care of the ball, knowing that that's been somewhat of an Achilles heel for us. So as we continue to keep improving in that area, it's going to really help us make sure that we do control the pace in tomorrow night's game.
Sam and then Winton.
Coach, what is the competition like in practice when it comes to the power forward group and seeing, okay, who's going to get that starting position in the 4 spot? And what's the reaction to the guys when that starter is named each week?
Yeah. Coach is very open and very truthful with our guys, so they know where they stand. Coach watches practice probably 3 times over before we, show up the next day. And same for the games and same with our staff. So there's not much that he's getting by. I mean, that those guys are getting by him. So, in film sessions, he's very honest when they're, not taking advantage or, they're relaxing or not focusing the last 20 minutes of practice. Like, he's holding that against them, like, right? Because you got to be able to compete, for the entirety of practice, just the same as you have to be able to compete for the entirety of the game. So when he announces the starter, I think everyone in the room is pretty understanding, and they probably at that point know just, from, what someone has done that we can practice. But our guys compete every day. Coach is one of the best, if not the best, demander in all of college sports. And it's not going to be a day where those guys can come in and just, not want to compete, not give their best effort, because if they don't, then they're going to hear about it. And they know that, you know what I mean? And that's why many of the former players love him. And that's why our players today love him, because they know that he's going to bring the absolute best out of them, even when they're not at their best, So practices are extremely competitive at that position and every position, So, as you can see, Ethan Berg had an opportunity to play a couple games ago. Troy was out there on the floor, and that's all because of, their level of competition and practice that week.
Wyndon, go ahead.
Coach, you just mentioned right now Ethan Berg and Troy, and both Amaris got on the floor against Alabama. Just what are you looking for in that third guard spot behind Jacoby and Bishop?
Yeah, just someone is willing to do exactly what, coaches asking them to do in practice and asking them to do in film. Someone that's going to execute offensively, that's not going to try to do too much. That's going to try to, take the opportunities that are presented, be aggressive, believe in themselves, but, do exactly what coach is asking of them in practice. And, usually the people who play the most that week in those positions are those guys that have shown it, over time. That's one thing Amari Evans has done, pretty consistent. And we talked about Amari Evans as in, like, even when we were playing, the Mercers, and even when we were playing Tennessee States, when he got in for 30 seconds or 45 seconds at the end of the game, or a minute and a half, the end of the game, he wasn't one of the guys that was just first time he caught the ball was trying to shoot it, right? Like, there's many a times we saw him catch the ball or drive the ball in the paint and spray the ball out to a teammate and get them a wide open shot. Like, and I think that's what's going to make him special, is that he's able to execute even in those moments. That's the maturity that he's had. So he's been pretty consistent. We know when he gets in the game, we know what he's going to do. We know what he's going to bring. We know he's going to compete. We know he's smart enough to be in the right spots offensively and defensively. So just by doing those things alone, his minutes are going to continue to keep increasing.
All right, last three, Ryan, Grant, Mike.
You coach Jeremiah Wilkinson last year at Cal. I'm curious what you see as maybe the areas he's improved the most from his freshman to sophomore year.
Efficiency. I think, everyone can see that just by looking at the numbers and analytics. He's always been a really good shooter, but just, taking better shots. So, I would say that's a big area that he's really, really improved. Like it's my guy. I got a great relationship with him. He'll reach out to me, even when he probably shouldn't. He'll reach out to me every now and then and try to make jokes about what he's going to do or whatever it might be. So our guys will be ready for him. So it'll be fun to be able to compete against him for sure.
I was going to ask about Jeremiah as well. Is it tough watching film of him and not being on the same side?
Oh, I'm not. It's what the game is these days, just with the transfer portal. I know Alex made a joke that, we played against somebody I coached every month, so with me having been at different spots, it's kind of what goes on in the profession now. If someone feels that there's a better opportunity elsewhere, they're looking for a different home. And with that being said, you end up playing against, somebody that you do love, but at the same time, when you're competing and you're in between those lines, we're all trying to win.
All right, last one from Mike.
Yeah, Amorrow, with the schedule change this week, how do you guys approach kind of having that extra day, or does it not feel like an extra day because you had to stay in Bama longer? I guess, how does that stuff move around, and how do you approach having that time?
Yeah, I think the extra day is always a positive. It could be a positive either way for them or for us. But for us, it gave us another day of rest, which was great, especially with, Jalen and what happened with him. But then on top of that, it gave us another day to prepare. And obviously, if you give Coach Barnes a little bit more time to do so, we'll be ready to go for sure.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time.
All righty. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Amorrow.
Peace.